You know what's crazy? Sometimes silence speaks louder than anything you could ever say. When you stop chasing, when you stop explaining yourself, when you finally accept that the version of you she knew no longer exists, that's when everything changes. Not just for her, but for you, because silence isn't about ignoring her, it's about respecting yourself. It's the moment when your energy shifts from trying to be understood to trying to understand yourself. You stop asking, "Why did she leave?" and start asking, "What did I learn?" Most guys never reach that point. They get stuck in the noise. Endless texts, overthinking, the late night scrolling through old pictures, trying to decode every last scene. But here's the truth no one tells you. Every second you spend trying to make her see your worth, you're wasting the time you could have used to build it. You see, silence isn't weak. It's one of the strongest things a man can master, because silence means discipline. It means you've decided to stop explaining yourself to people who already made up their mind. It means you've chosen peace over validation. And that's the moment she starts to feel it. Not instantly. No. At first she's confident. She thinks you'll break the silence, that you'll reach out eventually like always. She expects the same old pattern, a message, a memory, an excuse to talk. But then, days turn to weeks and she realizes the energy shifted. You're not watching her stories anymore. You're not replying to her posts. You're not orbiting her life. That's when confusion starts to creep in. She'll ask herself, "Wait, did he move on?" That's when regret begins to whisper, not because you played a game, but because you stopped playing one. You see, real power isn't in saying, "And I'm done." Real power is in meaning it silently. Real strength isn't walking away angry. It's walking away calm, grounded, and at peace. And while she's thinking about what went wrong, you're busy building something right, yourself. You're in the gym again. You're sleeping better. You're not scrolling through your phone at 2 a.m., staring at a blank chat window. You're reading, working, creating. You're feeding your purpose instead of your pain, because that's the secret. Silence turns pain into power. Every emotion you once wasted trying to get her attention now fuels your transformation. You start glowing differently. You move differently. People notice. And most importantly, you notice. Your silence becomes magnetic. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you've finally learned how to live without needing anyone to notice you. That's when she starts to feel something she didn't expect: absence. You see, women don't regret losing a man who begged. They regret losing a man who elevated. The man who turned heartbreak into hunger. The man who didn't chase closure because he became it. And that's the irony. When you were available, she took you for granted. But the moment you disappeared into your own growth, she starts remembering things differently. Suddenly, those small things, the way you listened, the way you showed up, start to hit her differently. But you're not doing it for her. That's the key difference between silence and manipulation. Silence is not about control, it's about alignment. You're not ignoring her to make her suffer. You're focusing on you to make yourself better. And when that happens, you'll realize something beautiful. The closure you were waiting for doesn't come from her message. It comes from your peace. The same silence that once scared you will become your greatest strength. Because it's not about proving her wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you can survive without anyone validating your worth. This isn't revenge. This is rebirth. And yeah, one day she might see you again. Maybe online, maybe in person, and something in her eyes will shift. She'll recognize that glow, that calm confidence she never noticed before. She'll remember the man who once chased her and realize he's no longer there. But by then, it won't even matter, because you won't need her to regret losing you anymore. You'll already be grateful she did. That's the real transformation silence brings. It teaches you that you never really lost her. You found yourself. So stop breaking your silence just to be heard. Let your progress speak instead. Let your peace be louder than your pain. Let your absence echo in ways your words never could. Because when you do this, When you go silent, not out of spite but out of self-respect. That's when everything changes. She'll regret losing you not because you punished her, but because you became the kind of man she was never ready for. And deep down, you'll finally realize that was always the point. There's something powerful about a man who no longer explains himself. When you stop chasing people to see your worth, you start attracting people who already do. That's the quiet shift that happens when you embrace silence. It doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how you see yourself. You begin to realize how much energy you wasted trying to be understood by someone who had already stopped listening. You remember all those late-night talks that went nowhere, all those moments when you tried to fix what was never broken. It was just unappreciated. And now finally you're free. You see, silence is not the absence of communication, it's the presence of control. It's you choosing not to react to everything that used to shake you. It's you saying, I could reply, but I don't need to. That's when you start to see the truth. Not everyone deserves access to your energy, because not everyone is meant to understand the version of you that's still evolving. At first, silence feels like punishment. You'll miss her. You'll want to text. You'll feel that urge to prove you're fine. But as time passes, that urge fades. The same silence that once felt empty becomes the space where you rebuild yourself. And while she's checking your profile, wondering if you've moved on, you'll be moving forward. There's a difference. You'll notice it in small ways. The mornings when you wake up and realize she wasn't the first thought in your head. The nights when you sleep peacefully, not replaying old arguments. The moments when your focus slowly returns to what truly matters. Your purpose, your peace, your progress. That's when you start to glow. Not in an I want her back kind of way, but in an I finally know my worth kind of way. People around you will feel it. You'll walk differently, speak differently, even think differently. Because silence teaches discipline, and discipline turns into power. See, women regret losing men who find peace after pain, because peace is rare. Everyone can post quotes about moving on, but very few actually do. Most people talk about healing while secretly waiting for a text. But not you. Not anymore. Your silence says, I've outgrown the need for closure. Your focus says, I'm building a life that doesn't depend on validation. And your presence, calm, unbothered, grounded, becomes impossible to ignore. That's what makes her curious again. Not your words, not your memories, your evolution. She might reach out. Maybe a casual text. Hey, how have you been? Maybe a reaction to your story, testing the waters. But you won't feel that same rush you once did. Because by then, you've tasted something better than her attention, your peace. You'll read her message, smile, and keep going. Not out of pride, but out of power. Because you've learned that sometimes the best reply is none. Silence isn't revenge, it's revelation. It reveals who's genuinely meant for you and who only wanted access when you were easy to reach. And that's when she'll feel it. The weight of losing a man who no longer needs her to feel complete. But here's the truth. This story was never about making her regret anything. It was always about you realizing your value. Because once you learn to stand alone, you stop begging anyone to stand beside you. Silence over time turns into strength. Strength turns into purpose. And purpose? That's the thing every man needs to find after heartbreak. You'll channel all that pain into your mission. Maybe you'll start a business. Maybe you'll hit the gym harder than ever. Maybe you'll travel, create, explore. But everything you do will carry a new kind of energy. One that says, I've been broken, but I rebuilt myself. That's when the regret hits her hardest. Not when she sees you with someone new, but when she realizes she doesn't recognize the man you've become. Because the man she left was emotional, reactive, desperate for validation. The man you've become is grounded, calm, and focused. That contrast, that transformation, is what triggers the deepest kind of regret. Not because you punished her, but because you healed yourself in silence. And that's what this entire journey is about. Silence isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about caring enough for yourself to stop explaining your worth to someone who couldn't see it. The moment you stop reacting, you start rising. The moment you stop chasing, you start attracting. The moment you stop needing, you start leading. So if you're in that silent phase right now, then stay there. It's uncomfortable, yes. It feels lonely, yes. But that's where real growth begins. You're not being ignored by life. You're being refined by it. Every day you stay silent, you take back another piece of your power. Every time you choose not to react, you build a stronger version of yourself. And one day when she does see you again, not the old you, but the evolved you, she'll understand what she lost. Not because of the silence itself, but because of who you became inside it. So don't break your silence to prove anything. Let your peace prove everything. You owe it to yourself to become so focused, so grounded, that her memory no longer defines your story. It only starts it. Because that's the full circle of silence. It begins as pain and ends as power. She'll regret losing you, not because you made her, but because your absence became a mirror. And in that mirror, she'll see the difference between a man she left and a man she can never replace. And you'll smile, not out of arrogance, but out of peace, because you'll know everything you were trying to prove through words, you already proved through silence.